Burning Mustang rescue. Little boy's heroism leads to hospital, reveal that changed everything. The city hummed with the ambition of 1,000 untold stories, a symphony of steel and glass reaching for the sky. Among them, Thorn Auto Solutions stood as a polished monument to Mr. Sterling Thorn's empire, its chrome facade gleaming under the afternoon sun. Inside, the hushed elegance of the showroom was a world away from the modest suburban street where 8-year-old Alex Miller knelt, beside his Uncle Ben's aging, dented pickup. Alex, usually quiet and observant, was meticulously organizing a collection of vintage car parts, a skill honed by countless hours spent in his uncle's struggling auto repair shop. "Another successful salvage operation, huh, champ?" Uncle Ben called out, his voice raspy but warm as he emerged from the shop, wiping grease from his hands. Alex looked up, his dark eyes bright. "Almost, Uncle Ben. Just need to find the right distributor cap for this 72 Charger. It's got a story to tell." Alex had an uncanny ability to see the history in forgotten objects, a trait his uncle admired. Uncle Ben smiled, a tired but affectionate expression. Life at their small, cluttered home above the garage was a constant hustle, every spare dollar, stretched thin by rising medical bills for his own chronic back pain. But he had poured every ounce of his energy into raising Alex, ensuring the boy never felt the weight of their financial struggles. "You know," Kevin said, "my car is a junker," Alex said later that evening, his voice unusually soft as they sat on the small, oil-stained porch, the distant hum of traffic a stark contrast to the quiet of their street. Uncle Ben's brow furrowed. "Kevin from school? Don't you pay any mind to him, son. That boy's daddy thinks money makes the man. But your character, your heart, that's where real worth lies." Alex nodded, then picked up a small red die-cast Mustang, its paint chipped from years of play. "This red one? It's my favorite," he announced, turning it over in his small hand. "It's going to be the most important one of all." Uncle Ben's gaze lingered on the toy, a fleeting shadow of worry crossing his face. "I'm sure it will be, honey. I'm sure it will be." As the sun dipped below the horizon, neither could have imagined that this little toy and Alex's quiet bravery were about to collide with destiny in the most explosive way, changing everything. The next afternoon, Alex was sketching car designs in his notebook near the roadside when a piercing screech of tires ripped through the quiet. A sleek, custom black Mustang, its engine roaring like a caged beast, swerved violently on the avenue bordering Thorn Auto Solutions. Mr. Sterling Thorn, fresh from a high-stakes meeting, fought the wheel as the car veered sharply, slamming into a thick oak tree at the edge of the dealership's meticulously manicured lawn. Metal shrieked, glass shattered, and a terrifying hiss of steam was quickly followed by an ominous orange glow, then hungry flames licking at the crushed hood. "Uncle Ben!" Alex screamed, but his feet were already pounding toward the wreckage. Inside the twisted metal, a man in an expensive suit hung unconscious against his seatbelt, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. The fire was spreading, consuming the engine compartment with frightening speed. Mister, wake up!" Alex pounded on the driver's side window, but it wouldn't budge. The door was jammed, mangled tight against the frame. Panic could have paralyzed him, but Alex's mind worked with a startling, almost adult clarity. He spotted a discarded wrench near the tree and grabbed it with both hands. The passenger window exploded inward as he struck it, safety glass showering everywhere. Without hesitation, Alex climbed halfway through the opening. "Mister, you have to wake up!" He shook the man's shoulder hard. Mr. Thorne's eyes fluttered open, dazed and confused. "The car's on fire! We have to get out now." Alex's voice, though small, cut through the mogul's fog. Something in its absolute certainty, the unwavering resolve of a child who refused to accept defeat, snapped Mr. Thorne to awareness. Together, they struggled, as he unbuckled his seatbelt, and Alex guided him toward the passenger side. The heat was becoming unbearable, smoke filling their lungs, burning Alex's throat. With Alex pulling and the man pushing, they tumbled out of the car just as Uncle Ben arrived, the cordless phone pressed to his ear. "This is 911, what's your emergency?" They had barely crawled 20 feet when the Mustang exploded behind them, the concussive force knocking them flat. Alex's ears rang, but he immediately turned to check on the stranger who lay gasping beside him. "You're going to be okay," Alex said with the same calm confidence he used when diagnosing an engine problem. "Help is coming." As sirens wailed in the distance, Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out his precious red die-cast Mustang, the one he'd called the most important of all. Without a word, he slipped it into Mr. Thorne's suit jacket. "Pocket. Keep it. For when you need to remember what courage looks like," Alex whispered, just as the paramedics arrived. After the accident, life at Uncle Ben's shop had seemingly returned to normal. Alex arranged his remaining car parts, minus the precious red Mustang, while Uncle Ben tended to sputtering engines. But normalcy was an illusion that couldn't hide the subtle changes creeping into their routine. "Did you really save someone? From a burning car?" asked Kevin, Alex's classmate, his voice dripping with skepticism during recess at the affluent Kennedy Prep. "Of course I did," Alex replied matter-of-factly, kicking a stray tire across the asphalt. "The car exploded right after we got out. It was like in the movies, but louder." "No way a little kid could do that," scoffed Liam, Kevin's friend. "You're just making stuff up." Alex shrugged, unbothered by their disbelief. He knew what had happened, and that was enough. Truth didn't need validation from children who thought heroism only came in adult-sized packages. At home, however, Alex noticed things that worried his young mind. Uncle Ben moved slower than usual, pausing to catch his breath after simple tasks. The prescription bottles in the kitchen cabinet had multiplied, and Alex often caught his uncle taking special medicine when he thought no one was watching. "Uncle Ben, are you feeling okay?" Alex asked one evening as they sat on the porch, watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. "Just a little tired, sweetheart. These old bones aren't what they used to be." Uncle Ben's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Later that night, Alex padded quietly to the kitchen for a glass of water and found his uncle sitting at the worn wooden table, staring at an old faded photograph. The image showed a young woman with Alex's dark eyes standing beside a much younger Mr. Sterling Thorne. "Who's that man with Mom?" Alex asked softly. Uncle Ben startled, quickly sliding the photo beneath other papers. "Just an old acquaintance. From college, son. Nothing important." But Alex had seen something flicker across his uncle's face. Recognition, perhaps, or maybe a deep, unresolved sorrow. The man in the photograph had piercing eyes and a familiar, almost arrogant smile, though Alex couldn't place where he might have seen it before. "Mom looks happy," Alex observed. "She was," Uncle Ben whispered, his voice carrying the weight of decades of secrets. "She was very happy." Then, as Alex climbed back into bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the photograph held answers to questions he didn't yet know how to ask. A mystery quietly humming beneath the surface of their lives. At Chicago Metropolitan Hospital, Mr. Sterling Thorne stared at the pristine white ceiling of his private VIP room. Fragments of memory drifted through his mind like elusive puzzle pieces. The doctors said he'd suffered a concussion, but his recollections of the accident remained frustratingly hazy, except for one crystal-clear image, a small boy with determined dark eyes pulling him to safety. Mr. Thorne, Dr. Evelyn Reed, entered with a clipboard, her expression unusually serious. "We need to discuss something unexpected that came up during your treatment." Mr. Thorne shifted uncomfortably. "Is there a problem with my recovery?" "No, nothing like that. As part of our comprehensive genetic screening for all high-profile patients, we analyzed your blood sample. The database flagged an interesting, highly significant match." Dr. Reed paused, choosing her words carefully. "There's an undeniable genetic correlation with another patient, an 8-year-old boy named Alex Miller." The name hit Mr. Thorne, like a physical blow. "Alex Miller, the boy who saved me. You know him?" Mr. Thorne's mind raced. He'd been trying to find the brave little boy to thank him properly, but the name Miller had meant nothing to him. "What kind of correlation are we talking about?" "The kind that indicates a direct familial relationship, specifically parent and child." The room seemed to tilt. Mr. Thorne gripped the bed rails, his knuckles white. "That's impossible. I don't have any children, doctor." Dr. Reed consulted her notes. According to our records, Alex's mother was Eliza Miller, maiden. Name Evans. She passed away during childbirth 8 years ago. Eliza Evans. The name exploded through Mr. Thorne's consciousness like a lightning strike. Beautiful, vibrant Eliza with her fierce independence and quiet dreams of art and freedom. They'd had a passionate secret affair in college, a whirlwind of stolen moments he'd dismissed as a youthful indiscretion, convinced she was too unconventional for his family's expectations. She'd vanished abruptly after graduation, leaving only a cryptic note saying she needed to live authentically, without compromise. "Mr. Thorne, are you all right?" Mr. Thorne's hands trembled as the pieces fell into place. Eliza had been pregnant. She'd carried his child, his son, and never told him. The brave little boy who'd risked his life to save a stranger was his son. His son who'd grown up thinking he had no father, raised by a struggling uncle. "I need to see the test results," Mr. Thorne whispered, his voice hoarse. "Of course. But Mr. Thorne, there's something else you should know." Dr. Reed paused, her voice softening. "The child's guardian, Benjamin Miller, Uncle Ben, as Alex calls him, has been receiving treatment here for advanced stage chronic back pain. His prognosis. It's not terminal, but it severely limits his ability to work and care for Alex long-term without significant, costly intervention." Mr. Thorne closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the cosmic, brutal irony. His son, a son he never knew existed, had saved his life. And now fate was presenting him with the chance to save his son's future, and perhaps his own soul. Mr. Thorne's discharge from the hospital felt surreal. Within hours of learning about Alex, his trusted, if initially disdainful, assistant, Ms. Davenport had transformed from scheduling corporate takeovers to conducting the most delicate investigation of Mr. Thorne's life. "The records are all here," Ms. Davenport said, spreading documents across Mr. Thorne's vast downtown penthouse office desk. Eliza Miller, formerly Evans, died from complications during childbirth at St. Jude's Hospital. No father listed on the birth certificate. The child has been raised entirely by his maternal uncle, Benjamin Miller. Mr. Thorne studied Alex's school photograph with trembling hands. The resemblance was undeniable. Alex had his determined jawline, Eliza's expressive eyes, and a combination of their features that created something uniquely poignant. "What about the uncle's condition?" Mr. Thorne asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Chronic, debilitating pain. He's been hiding it well, according to the neighbors. Still running that small auto shop, still caring for Alex like nothing's wrong. But he's falling behind on bills, facing foreclosure on the garage. The medical costs, they're astronomical." Ms. Davenport's voice was, for once, devoid of her usual sharp edge. Mr. Thorne stood at his office window, staring down at the bustling Chicago streets 42 floors below. A week ago, his biggest concern had been closing the Henderson Hotel chain merger. Now he was grappling with the existence of a son he'd never known, and the approaching loss of the only stable guardian Alex had ever known. Why didn't Eliza tell me? The question that had tormented him since Dr. Reed's revelation burst out, raw and unfiltered. "We talked about everything. Love, our future. She just vanished." "Perhaps she thought you weren't ready, sir," Ms. Davenport suggested carefully. "You were extremely focused on building this company back then. Long hours, constant travel." The words stung because they held truth. At 25, Mr. Thorne had been consumed by ambition, determined to prove himself, to build an empire. He'd been infatuated with Eliza, perhaps even loved her deeply. But had he shown her that she, or a family, would come first? He hadn't. "I need to meet with the uncle before approaching Alex," Mr. Thorne decided. "If Benjamin Miller has been protecting my son for 8 years, he deserves explanations, not surprises." Ms. Davenport nodded, a flicker of grudging respect in her eyes. "I'll arrange it discreetly. But Mr. Thorne, are you prepared for what this means? Taking responsibility for an 8-year-old, it will change everything about your life." Mr. Thorne touched the red die-cast Mustang he'd found in his suit jacket pocket, Alex's gift of luck that had somehow brought them together. "Ms. Davenport," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "That little boy saved my life without knowing who I was. Maybe it's time I returned the favor." Mr. Thorne's hand trembled as he knocked on the modest door of Uncle Ben's cottage. Through the window, he could see Uncle Ben moving slowly toward the entrance, his strained gait betraying the pain he'd hidden so well. Mr. Thorne. Uncle Ben's voice held no surprise, only a weary resignation. I wondered when you'd come. You knew who I was. During the accident? Uncle Ben stepped aside, gesturing him into the small, cluttered living room, filled with the scent of old engine oil and worn fabric. Eliza kept your picture. You haven't changed much. His eyes held decades of carefully guarded secrets. She made me promise only to contact you if something happened to me, and if Alex had nowhere else to go. Why didn't she tell me herself? The question tore from Mr. Thorne's throat, raw with years of buried regret. She was scared. Uncle Ben settled heavily into his worn armchair, wincing slightly. Eliza saw how consumed you were with building your empire. She convinced herself that a baby would be an inconvenience, something that would make you resent her eventually. Mr. Thorne sank onto the small sofa, surrounded by evidence of Alex's life. Blueprints for fantastical cars taped to the refrigerator, a collection of tiny wrenches arranged in careful patterns on the coffee table, the lingering scent of gasoline, and boyish dreams. She was wrong, he whispered, the words catching in his throat. I know that now. Uncle Ben's smile was sad but genuine. The way you've been searching for Alex since the accident, the concern in your voice when you called, Eliza would have seen it too, given time. How long do you have? Mr. Thorne asked, the brutal question hanging in the air. Weeks, maybe a month if I'm lucky, before the pain makes running the shop impossible. And then... I don't know. I've been trying to prepare Alex without frightening him, but 8-year-olds shouldn't have to face losing their whole world. The front door burst open, and Alex's voice filled the cottage. Uncle Ben, I'm... Home! Mrs. Davies gave me an extra wrench. He stopped short, staring at Mr. Thorne with wide eyes. It's you, the man from the car. Alex's face lit up with genuine joy. Are you all better now? Did my lucky Mustang help? Mr. Thorne's throat constricted. Yes, sweetheart. It helped very much. Alex, Mr. Thorne brought you something? Uncle Ben said gently. Mr. Thorne produced the advanced mechanics set Ms. Davenport had reluctantly suggested. Miniature tools, schematics, and gleaming chrome parts. Alex's eyes grew round with wonder. This is for me. Really? He immediately began examining each item with the reverence of someone who'd never owned anything so fine. I heard you like to work on cars, Mr. Thorne managed. I love to. Want to see my car part collection and my blueprints? Without waiting for an answer, Alex grabbed his hand, his small fingers warm and trusting. As he led him to his carefully organized collection, chattering about each piece's significance, Mr. Thorne felt something fundamental shift in his chest. This wasn't just duty or responsibility. This was love, instant and overwhelming for the brave little boy who'd already changed his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. Over the following weeks, Mr. Thorne became a fixture at the cottage. He'd arrive after work with industrial-grade tools, help Alex with his science projects, and sit quietly with Uncle Ben during his increasingly difficult days. The pretense that he was simply a grateful accident victim had naturally evolved into something deeper, a family forming under the shadow of impending loss. Alex had grown comfortable with Mr. Thorne's presence, showing him his latest engine diagrams and teaching him basic welding techniques with the seriousness of passing down ancient wisdom, but he remained unaware of the profound truth that connected them. He trusts you completely, Uncle Ben observed one evening, as they watched Alex tinker with a small engine on the porch, his voice having grown weaker, each word requiring effort. He's remarkable, Mr. Thorne replied, marveling at how Alex hummed contentedly despite the upheaval surrounding him. How do we tell him? Soon. He needs to understand before. Uncle Ben's sentence trailed off, but both knew its tragic conclusion. The moment came 3 days later when Uncle Ben collapsed while trying to lift a car part. After a frightening rush to the hospital, doctors confirmed what they'd all dreaded. His time was measured in days, not weeks. That evening, sitting in the cottage living room with Alex curled between them on the couch, Uncle Ben took his nephew's small hands. Sweetheart, you know how I've been feeling tired lately. Alex nodded, suddenly serious. You've been taking more medicine? I'm very sick, honey. So sick that the doctors can't make me better. Uncle Ben's voice remained steady despite the tears in his eyes. And that means you'll need someone else to take care of you. Alex's grip tightened. But I want to stay with you. I know, baby boy. But remember how we always talked about how strong and brave you are? Uncle Ben glanced at Mr. Thorne, who nodded encouragingly. Mr. Thorne isn't just our friend. He's your daddy, Alex, your real daddy. The silence stretched endlessly, heavy with unspoken histories. Alex looked between them, processing this revelation with the same careful consideration he gave his complex engine schematics. My daddy? He whispered, the words fragile. Yes, Mr. Thorne said softly, his voice thick with emotion. I didn't know about you before, but now that I do, I want to take care of you. If that's okay with you. Alex studied his face intently. Will you teach me to drive when I'm older and help me with my robot building projects and make sure I don't eat too much sugar even when I want to? Every single thing, Mr. Thorne promised, his voice thick with emotion, a vow spoken. From the depth of a newly awakened heart. Alex nodded solemnly. Okay, but can I bring all my car parts and Uncle Ben's tools? Everything that's important to you comes with us, Mr. Thorne assured him. As Uncle Ben drifted off to sleep that night, Alex whispered to Mr. Thorne, I'm scared, but I'm ready for our new chapter. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, being brave isn't about being fearless, kid. It's about feeling the fear and doing what's right anyway. 2 weeks after Uncle Ben's quiet funeral, a small, dignified service where Alex had stood with quiet composure, clutching his uncle's favorite wrench, Mr. Thorne's penthouse elevator climbed toward a new beginning. Alex pressed his face against the glass walls, watching Chicago shrink below them, a sprawling metropolis now his new home. Are we really going to live in the clouds? He asked, his voice small in the vast elevator. Just about, Mr. Thorne smiled, though his stomach churned with nerves. Social services had approved his custody petition, but paperwork couldn't prepare him for the reality of becoming an instant father. The elevator opened to reveal 42 floors of luxury that made Alex's eyes widen. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city skyline, while polished marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Everything was pristine, expensive, and utterly foreign to a little boy who'd spent his life above a two-bay auto shop, Mr. Thorne, and this must be Alex. Ms. Davenport, Mr. Thorne's longtime executive assistant, emerged from the kitchen with a tightly composed smile. I've been preparing all morning for your arrival. Alex instinctively moved closer to Mr. Thorne, overwhelmed by the grandeur surrounding him. I prepared a special room just for you, Mr. Thorne said, leading him down a hallway lined with abstract art. He opened a door to reveal a bedroom, decorated in sleek blues and silvers, with a window seat overlooking the lake and a specially built shelf for his entire collection of car parts and toolkits. This is all mine? Alex whispered, stepping carefully across the plush carpet as if afraid to disturb something. Every bit of it. Mr. Thorne knelt beside him. Your car parts can go right here on this shelf, and there's space for all your schematics and robot projects. Alex nodded, but remained quiet, setting down the small duffel bag that contained his few possessions. He arranged his car parts methodically, recreating the familiar layouts that had comforted him at the garage. As he worked, Mr. Thorne noticed his hands trembling slightly. That night, after Ms. Davenport had served a dinner that Alex barely touched, Mr. Thorne helped him settle into his new room. He wore his uncle's old work shirt over his pajamas and clutched it close as he climbed into the enormous bed. Good night, Alex, Mr. Thorne said softly from the doorway. Good night, Daddy. The word hung in the air, tentative but genuine. Mr. Thorne closed the door and stood in the hallway listening. Soon, soft crying filtered through the walls, the sound of a brave little boy finally allowing himself to grieve in private. Mr. Thorne sat on the floor outside his door, his back against the wall. He couldn't take away Alex's pain, but he could be near. Inside, Alex eventually fell asleep, clutching Uncle Ben's shirt, his toy Mustang arranged on the nightstand like a tiny sentinel watching over his dreams. The first month of their New life together unfolded like a careful dance between two people learning each other's rhythms. Mr. Thorne had rearranged his entire world, scaling back his work hours, attending parenting for executives seminars that made him feel like a bewildered student, and consulting child psychologists who assured him that adjustment took time. "I got lost again," Alex announced one morning, emerging from what Mr. Thorne had thought was the guest bathroom. "This place is like a maze." He'd somehow ended up in his home office, surrounded by financial reports and the serious leather furniture that suddenly seemed intimidating rather than impressive. Mr. Thorne found him sitting in his executive chair, spinning slowly while studying the city view. "Maybe we need a map," Mr. Thorne suggested, remembering Alex's love of creating schematics with his car parts. Alex's face brightened. "Can we make one together?" They spent the afternoon creating a whimsical floor plan, with Alex drawing little pictures to mark each room: a tiny bed for his bedroom, a stack of blueprints for the study, a wrench for the kitchen where Ms. Davenport rarely ventured. "What's this room for?" Alex asked, pointing to Mr. Thorne's rarely used formal dining room. "Fancy dinners, I suppose? Can we eat breakfast there tomorrow? It looks lonely." Mr. Thorne realized that in 7 years of living in the penthouse, he'd never once considered whether rooms could feel lonely. "Of course we can." Alex insisted on helping Ms. Davenport with household tasks, despite both adults' protests. He'd stand on a step stool to polish silverware, his small hands careful with the expensive china, chattering about his day at his new school. "The kids are different here," he confided to Mr. Thorne one evening as they worked on homework at the kitchen island. "They talk about things I don't understand. Yachting lessons and private jet holidays. Are they unkind to you?" "Not mean, exactly. Just, we don't have the same words." Alex concentrated on his math problems, then looked up. "But I taught Liam how to make a mini robot with spare parts at recess. He thought it was neat." Mr. Thorne marveled at his resilience. Where another child might have been overwhelmed by the social differences, Alex simply adapted, finding connections wherever possible. Their bedtime routine had evolved into something sacred. Alex would show Mr. Thorne his daily sketches, usually scenes from his memories of the garage or new observations about his penthouse life. He'd learned to look closely, understanding that his drawings were how he processed the enormous changes in his world. "This one's us," he said one night, holding up a picture of two stick figures holding hands in front of a tall building. "We look happy." Mr. Thorne studied the drawing, noticing that Alex had given both figures the same resolute chin. "We do look happy. Are we happy?" Alex considered this seriously. "I miss Uncle Ben every day, but I'm glad you're my daddy. Is that okay?" "That's more than okay," Mr. Thorne whispered, tucking the drawing carefully into the growing collection he kept in his desk drawer. "That's perfect." Alex's sketches had evolved from simple crayon drawings to complex architectural renderings that took Mr. Thorne's breath away. The engineering tutor he'd hired, Mr. Chen, emerged from their first session, shaking his head in amazement. "Mr. Thorne, I've taught children for 20 years, but Alex's natural talent is extraordinary. He doesn't just draw what he sees, he engineers possibility." Mr. Thorne studied Alex's latest creation, a detailed blueprint of Uncle Ben's garage, but somehow the entire structure glowed with the warmth of loving memories that transcended mere representation. "He's processing his grief through creation," Mr. Chen explained quietly. "Look at this series." The drawings told Alex's story: the garage, the accident, the hospital, their first meeting, and finally, scenes of the penthouse with both wonder and uncertainty swirling in the careful lines. Mr. Thorne had them professionally framed and displayed throughout the penthouse, replacing his sterile, abstract pieces with Alex's vibrant, emotional landscapes. The transformation was remarkable. The cold, impersonal space suddenly felt like a home. But the real test came during Alex's first major meltdown. He woke, screaming at 2 a.m., calling for Uncle Ben through tears that seemed to come from his very soul. Mr. Thorne found him curled in his closet, hyperventilating and inconsolable. "Uncle Ben! I want Uncle Ben! Where is he? Where did he go?" Mr. Thorne's parenting seminars hadn't prepared him for this raw display of grief. His instinct was to fix it, to make promises that would stop his tears. Instead, he remembered Mr. Chen's advice about allowing Alex to process emotions naturally. I know, sweetheart. I know you miss him. He sat on the closet floor beside him, not trying to pull him out or make him stop crying. Uncle Ben loved you so much. I dreamed he was fixing a car, but then he disappeared and I couldn't find him anywhere. Mr. Thorne reached for Alex's sketch pad and pencils, setting them gently beside him. Can you show me what the dream looked like? Through his tears, Alex began to draw. The image that emerged was haunting, a garage fading into mist while a small figure reached desperately toward it. But as he worked, his breathing steadied, the violent sobs turning to quiet sniffles. He's not really gone, is he? Alex whispered when the drawing was finished. I mean, I can't see him, but he's still here. He pressed his hand to his heart. He'll always be here, Mr. Thorne confirmed, his own voice thick with emotion. And in your mind, and in the skills he taught you, and in how brave and kind you are. Alex leaned against him, exhausted, but calmer. Will you stay until I fall asleep? I'll stay as long as you need me to. As Alex drifted off, still holding his pencil, Mr. Thorne realized something profound had shifted between them. He wasn't just his guardian anymore. He was truly his father, the person his son turned to when his world felt uncertain. The realization filled him with both fierce protectiveness and humble gratitude. The legal proceedings for Alex's permanent adoption moved forward with bureaucratic precision. But the emotional adoption had already taken place in moments too small for courtrooms to measure. Mr. Thorne found himself treasuring Alex's sleepy, "Good morning, Daddy," and the way he automatically reached for his hand when crossing busy streets. Bring your son to work day, Ms. Davenport suggested one Tuesday morning, noticing Mr. Thorne's reluctance to leave for an important client meeting. He has school, Mr. Thorne protested, though the idea appealed to him more than he'd admit. It's a teacher planning day, Alex had told Ms. Davenport yesterday. Ms. Davenport smirked. You're not the only one who pays attention to his schedule. An hour later, Alex sat in Mr. Thorne's executive conference room, quietly working on homework while Mr. Thorne conducted his meeting. He'd promised to be invisible, but his presence transformed the atmosphere entirely. His usually ruthless business associates found themselves smiling at his polite, "Excuse me," when he needed to adjust a building block in his complex Lego castle. That's your son? Asked Harrison Webb, one of Mr. Thorne's toughest competitors, after the meeting concluded. He's remarkable. Reminds me of my grandson. Mr. Thorne felt a surge of pride watching Alex charm his colleagues with his genuine curiosity about their work. He asked thoughtful questions about urban planning and listened with the same serious attention he gave his car part arrangements. Later, while organizing his desk drawer, Mr. Thorne discovered something that stopped his heart. The red die-cast. Mustang Alex had given him the day of the accident, now tarnished and worn from being carried in his pocket for months. Alex, he called softly. Alex looked up from his drawing at the small conference table. I have something that belongs to you. His eyes widened when he saw the familiar red car. My lucky Mustang. I thought I'd never see it again. You gave it to me for luck, remember? And it worked. It had brought me to you. Mr. Thorne had the toy car professionally restored and mounted on a display stand, presenting it to Alex that evening at dinner. His reaction was everything he'd hoped for and more. He clutched it to his chest with tears in his eyes. Now, we both have luck, he whispered. Their relationship deepened through shared experiences that might have seemed ordinary to others, but felt magical to them both. They developed inside jokes about Ms. Davenport's tendency to over-organize everything, created elaborate backstories for the people they observed from their high windows, and established rituals that belonged uniquely to them. But it was Alex's difficult day at school that truly cemented their bond. He came home unusually quiet, his typical chatter replaced by thoughtful silence. At dinner, he picked at Ms. Davenport's carefully prepared meal, lost in thought. Want to talk about it? Mr. Thorne asked gently. The kids at school were talking about their spring break trips, skiing in Aspen, beaches in Hawaii, castles in Europe. Alex's voice was small. When they asked about mine, I said we didn't go anywhere because my Uncle Ben had just passed away. They got all weird and quiet, like I'd said something wrong. Mr. Thorne felt a familiar surge of protectiveness, but he forced himself to listen instead of immediately trying to fix his son's pain. Then Kevin, he's usually not nice, said, "Maybe next year your new family would take you somewhere good, like I was some kind of charity case who got lucky." Alex's eyes filled with tears. "They don't understand that you're not new. You're my real daddy, and we're a real family, even if it's different." Mr. Thorne moved around the table to kneel beside his son's chair. "Alex, I want to tell you about when I was your age." His tears paused, curiosity overriding hurt. "I had a difficult family situation too for a while. My parents were always focused on their work, and I felt different from the other kids who had normal families. I was angry and ashamed, thinking I wasn't good enough." "But you're successful now," Alex interjected. "You have this beautiful home and everyone respects you." "True power isn't in what you own, Alex. It's in who you are and what you choose to do, even when no one's watching," Mr. Thorne said softly. "You saved a stranger's life when you were 8 years old. You handled losing your Uncle Ben with more grace than most adults could manage. You adapted to a completely new life without losing your kindness or courage. Those kids can't even imagine being that strong." Alex considered this, absently rubbing his lucky Mustang display stand. "Will you help me write a letter to my teacher? I want to do a presentation about Uncle Ben for show and tell, about how he taught me to be brave and kind, and how that's more important than fancy vacations. I would be honored to help you with that." As they worked on the presentation, together that evening, Mr. Thorne realized that Alex was teaching him just as much as he was teaching his son. Through his eyes, he was rediscovering what truly mattered. Not the size of his bank account or the view from his office, but the courage to love completely, and the wisdom to find strength in vulnerability. The final DNA test results arrived the next week, officially confirming what their hearts already knew. Mr. Thorne framed the document, not as proof of their relationship, but as a symbol of the legal system finally catching up to an emotional truth that had been evident from the moment they'd met. The idea struck Mr. Thorne during one of Alex's bedtime reflections. When he wondered aloud why some children didn't have enough food, while others complained about having too many toys, his simple question, "Couldn't the kids with too much just share with the kids who don't have enough?" planted a seed that would grow into something transformative. "What if we could actually do that?" Mr. Thorne asked him the next morning over breakfast. Alex looked up from his cereal, intrigued. "Do what?" "Share. Create a way to help children who don't have what they need." Mr. Thorne pulled out a legal pad, sketching ideas as he spoke. "We could call it the Miller-Thorne Foundation." "After Uncle Ben and us?" Alex's eyes lit up with understanding. "After the 3 most important people in my life," Mr. Thorne confirmed, adding Eliza's name prominently to his notes. Within weeks, the foundation took shape, with Alex as its most passionate advocate. He insisted on including model car kits and engineering supplies in every care package, explaining to the foundation's board of directors with the seriousness of a seasoned philanthropist that creativity and problem-solving were just as important as food and clothing. "Building things helps you feel better when you're sad," he told the intimidating group of lawyers and businessmen. "And it helps you dream about better things when everything seems bad." The board, initially skeptical of including an 8-year-old in their planning sessions, found themselves charmed by Alex's practical wisdom and unwavering moral compass. Their first major project was renovating the Phoenix Children's Innovation Center on Chicago's West Side. Mr. Thorne had expected to write a check and attend a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Instead, Alex insisted they visit first to understand what the children actually needed. "Hello," Alex said simply to the group of wary children gathered in the shelter's threadbare common room. While Mr. Thorne talked with the administrators, he sat cross-legged on the floor and began assembling a small robot from a kit. Within minutes, he was surrounded by curious faces. "What are those?" asked a boy about Alex's age, his clothes too small and his eyes too old. "Innovation. Kits," Alex explained. "Each one tells a story about what you can build and where you might go. Can we make some?" "That's why I brought extras." Alex pulled out a bag of kits he'd been collecting specifically for this purpose. "Everyone gets to pick their favorites, and create their own invention. Mr. Thorne watched from across the room as Alex worked his magic, teaching the children not just a craft, but a way to find purpose and possibility in discarded things. He listened to their stories without judgment, helped settle disputes over particularly coveted parts, and somehow made each child feel special and heard. "He's remarkable," said Dr. Maria Gonzalez, the shelter director. "Most adult volunteers come here feeling sorry for our kids. Your son sees them as equals. He knows what it's like to have his world change overnight." Mr. Thorne replied, his throat tight with pride. When the renovation began 3 months later, Alex was involved in every decision. He insisted on vibrant, inspiring murals instead of institutional beige dedicated robotics labs instead of sterile study areas, and a fully stocked innovation room with supplies that would never run out. "Every child should have a place where they can make something amazing," he declared during a planning meeting, sketching his vision with the same careful attention he gave his complex blueprints. The transformation was remarkable. The once dreary shelter became a warm, welcoming space where children could heal and hope. Alex donated half of his personal car part collection to stock the innovation room, carefully selecting pieces that held special meaning. "This blue one was the first one I found after Daddy saved me from the accident," he explained to Ms. Davenport, who was documenting the donation for the foundation's records. "And this green one was Uncle Ben's favorite because it reminded him of spring." "Are you sure you want to give them away?" Ms. Davenport asked gently. "They're not going away," Alex said with conviction. "They're going to help other kids make their own inventions. That's what Uncle Ben would want." The official opening of the renovated shelter drew media attention that Mr. Thorne carefully managed to protect Alex's privacy while highlighting his vision. But it was the private moments that mattered most. Watching Alex teach a shy 6-year-old how to assemble a simple circuit, seeing him comfort a teenager who'd aged out of foster care, observing his natural ability to connect with children from all backgrounds. "Why do you think helping other kids is so important?" Mr. Thorne asked him one evening as they reviewed foundation applications. Alex considered the question with his characteristic thoughtfulness. "When Uncle Ben was sick, I felt really alone, even though he was still there. And when he died, I felt like the whole world had forgotten about me." He looked up from the grant application he'd been reviewing, a request from a group home in Milwaukee. "These kids feel alone too. Maybe if we help them, they'll remember that somebody cares about them, even when everything seems scary." Thorne realized that Alex had articulated something he'd spent years in business school trying to understand, that true success wasn't measured in profit margins, but in the number of lives you touched and improved. The foundation expanded rapidly, funding innovation programs in 12 shelters across the Midwest within its first year. Alex insisted on visiting each one, creating his robot designs with hundreds of children and leaving behind not just supplies, but hope. "He's changing how we think about child welfare," noted Dr. Samuel Mitchell, a social work professor who began studying the foundation's impact. "Traditional approaches focus on meeting basic needs: food, shelter, safety. Alex's initiatives address something deeper: the need for dignity, creativity, and connection." Mr. Thorne found himself changing too. His perspective on wealth and responsibility fundamentally altered by his son's example. Deals that once seemed crucial now paled in comparison to the joy on a child's face when they completed their first invention. Board meetings felt trivial next to the foundation planning sessions where Alex's input carried as much weight as any MBA. "You know what the best part is?" Alex told him one night as they organized photos from their latest shelter visit. "When kids build things, they stop being sad for a little while. And sometimes if they make enough inventions, they remember how to be happy again." Mr. Thorne studied a photo of Alex sitting with a group of children, all of them concentrating intently on their creations. In that moment, he understood that his son hadn't just saved his life in a car accident. He'd saved his soul, teaching him that true wealth came not from what you accumulated, but from what you gave away. The threat came from an unexpected source: Mr. Thorne's past, reaching into their carefully constructed present with vicious intent. Victor Blackwood, Mr. Thorne's former business partner, had been released from federal prison after serving 18 months for embezzling company funds. Mr. Thorne had been the one to discover the fraud and testify against him, ending both. their partnership, and Victor's career. Ms. Davenport delivered the disturbing news during what should have been a routine morning briefing. The police investigation into your car accident has been reopened. They found evidence of mechanical tampering. Mr. Thorne's blood ran cold. What kind of tampering? Brake lines partially severed, designed to fail under stress. Ms. Davenport's voice was grim. The investigators believe it was revenge for your testimony that sent Victor to prison. The realization hit Mr. Thorne like a physical blow. Victor hadn't just tried to kill him. He'd inadvertently created the circumstances that brought Alex into his life. The cosmic irony would have been laughable if it weren't so terrifying. There's more, Ms. Davenport continued grimly. Victor has been making inquiries about Alex. He knows about the adoption, the foundation, everything. The phone rang that evening while Mr. Thorne was helping Alex with homework. The voice on the other end was coldly familiar. Hello. Thorne, prison food really gives you time to think about justice. Mr. Thorne moved quickly to the kitchen, away from Alex's innocent presence. Victor, what do you want? What you took from me, my reputation, my freedom, my future. Victor's laugh was bitter. But I've discovered you have something much more precious now. A little boy who depends on you completely. If you go anywhere near Alex... Relax. Thorne, I'm not a monster, but I am a desperate man with nothing left to lose. Unless you want social services to receive detailed allegations about your fitness as a father, you'll transfer $5 million to the account I'm about to give you. The line went dead, leaving Mr. Thorne shaking with rage and fear. Within hours, Ms. Davenport had contacted both the FBI and Mr. Thorne's security team, but the damage was already done. Victor had filed false reports alleging Mr. Thorne's neglect and inappropriate behavior toward Alex. While the claims were baseless, they triggered mandatory investigations that threw their lives into chaos. Alex sensed the change immediately. Why are there men in suits asking Ms. Davenport questions? He asked that evening, his toy Mustang clutched tightly in his small fist. Mr. Thorne knelt beside him, choosing honesty over false reassurance. Someone is trying to cause trouble. For our family. But we're going to be okay because we have the truth on our side. Is it because of me? Because I'm different from other kids? No, sweetheart. It's because of me. Something that happened before I knew you existed. But nothing will separate us, I promise. The nightmares returned that night, and Mr. Thorne found himself once again sitting outside Alex's door, listening to his frightened whimpers, and feeling powerless to shield him from adult cruelties he shouldn't have to understand. The breakthrough came when Ms. Davenport's investigation uncovered Victor's full plan, including recorded conversations where he admitted to the car tampering and his current extortion scheme. The FBI arrested him at his motel, ending the immediate threat, but leaving emotional scars that would take time to heal. Is the bad man gone forever? Alex asked after Mr. Thorne explained that Victor could no longer hurt them. Forever? Forever, Mr. Thorne confirmed, holding him close and marveling at his resilience. Even in the face of adult evil, he remained fundamentally hopeful, trusting that goodness would ultimately prevail. Good, he said simply, because we have too much important work to do to waste time being scared. 6 months after Victor's arrest and the finalization of Alex's adoption, their story began attracting attention beyond Chicago's philanthropic circles. What started as a local human interest piece, local businessman's son inspires citywide charity initiative, snowballed into national coverage when a prominent child advocacy group shared Alex's foundation work on social media. Daddy, why do all these people want to talk to us? Alex asked, staring at the stack of interview requests Ms. Davenport had carefully filtered and declined. Because your story gives people hope, Mr. Thorne explained, though he was fiercely protective of Alex's privacy. When people hear about a little boy who saved a stranger and then used his new life to help other children, it reminds them that good things can happen. Mr. Thorne had agreed to one carefully controlled interview with a respected family magazine with strict conditions about Alex's participation. He would answer only questions he felt comfortable with. No photographers would enter their home, and his foundation work would be the primary focus rather than the dramatic circumstances that brought them together. The journalist, Sarah Chen, arrived expecting a typical feel-good story, but left profoundly moved by Alex's genuine compassion and articulate wisdom. Most 8-year-olds I interview give one-word answers, Sarah told Mr. Thorne privately. Alex speaks like someone who's lived 3 lifetimes. He's remarkable. The article, titled The Young Innovator, captured Alex's essence without exploiting his story. It featured his designs, his foundation philosophy, and his practical approach to helping others. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of letters from children wanting to start their own building projects, donations pouring into the foundation, and requests from shelters across the country asking for help implementing Alex's programs. "Look at this one," Alex said, carefully reading a letter from a 10-year-old in California who'd started collecting old electronics to create robots for kids in her neighborhood. She says my story made her feel brave enough to help others. Mr. Thorne watched his son process this responsibility with the same thoughtful consideration he gave everything else. Rather than being overwhelmed by the attention, he seemed energized by the possibility of expanding their impact. The Foundation's annual fundraising gala had originally been planned as a modest Chicago event, but with national interest in Alex's work, it evolved into something much larger. Mr. Thorne insisted on keeping the focus on the children they served rather than on their personal story. But he knew Alex deserved recognition for his vision and leadership. "I've never been to a fancy party before," Alex admitted the evening of the gala, standing before his bedroom mirror in a sleek, tailored suit that matched his confident personality. "What if I say something wrong? Sweetheart, you've spoken to groups of adults at foundation meetings, comforted frightened children at shelters, and charmed some of the toughest businessmen in Chicago. You'll be perfect." But those were just conversations. This is different. Mr. Thorne knelt beside him, straightening the small silver wrench charm, Uncle Ben's old lucky charm, that Alex always wore for important occasions. "Do you remember what Uncle Ben used to tell you about being nervous? He said, 'Butterflies in your stomach just means something matters to you,'" Alex recited, his voice growing steadier. "And what did he say to do with those butterflies? Use them to fly higher than you thought you could." The Grand Ballroom of the Palmer House Hotel had been transformed into a showcase for the children's inventions from all 12 Foundation-supported shelters. Alex had insisted that every piece be displayed prominently, creating a gallery that told stories of hope, resilience, and creativity flourishing despite difficult circumstances. As guests arrived, a mixture of Chicago's elite, social workers, shelter administrators, and some of the older children from their programs, Alex moved through the crowd with natural grace. He remembered names, asked thoughtful questions, and somehow made everyone feel like the most important person in the room. "Alex, can you tell us about this robot?" asked Margaret Hoffman, one of Chicago's most prominent philanthropists, stopping before a vibrant piece created by a 6-year-old from the Phoenix shelter. "That's by Maria," Alex explained. "She told me this is what happiness looks like, all the circuits connected, but still beautiful. She made it after she learned that her foster family wants to adopt her." Alex's explanation was simple but profound, capturing both the child's joy and the deeper meaning of invention as expression. The formal program began with Mr. Thorne addressing the crowd, but it was Alex's brief speech that left the audience spellbound. "When I was little, well, a little less little than I am now," he began, earning gentle laughter. "My Uncle Ben taught me that everyone has something amazing inside them, but sometimes it gets buried under sad or scary things." He paused, scanning the audience with the same serious attention he gave his engineering schematics. "The kids we help aren't different from anyone else. They just need someone to help them remember how to find their amazing things again. Building things helps with that. So does knowing that somebody cares about you." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "My daddy and I are lucky because we found each other when we both needed families. But lots of kids are still looking for their families, or their safe places, or just someone to believe in them. That's why our foundation matters." The applause was thunderous, but Alex wasn't finished. "If you want to help, you don't have to give money, though that's nice too," he added with a smile that made adults chuckle. "You can collect old electronics for new inventions, or visit kids who feel lonely. Or just remember that every person has something amazing inside them, even when it's hard to see." As he concluded, Alex pulled out his lucky red die-cast Mustang, holding it up so everyone could see. "This little thing saved my daddy's life and brought us together. Sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest difference. The standing ovation lasted several minutes, but Mr. Thorne noticed that many guests were wiping away tears. Later, as they worked the room together, he overheard conversations that proved Alex's impact extended far beyond fundraising. That child made me reconsider our company's entire charitable giving strategy, confided Thomas Wright, CEO of a major corporation. I'm calling 3 shelters tomorrow to volunteer, said another guest. If an 8-year-old can make this kind of difference, surely I can contribute something. The evening raised over $2 million for the foundation, but more importantly, it established Alex as a genuine advocate for child welfare, rather than merely a sympathetic figure. Media coverage focused on his articulate vision and practical solutions rather than the dramatic story of their reunion. You were magnificent tonight, Mr. Thorne told Alex as they rode home, still wearing their formal attire, but both exhausted from the emotional intensity of the evening. Did we help the kids? He asked, settling against his shoulder in the backseat of their car. We helped them tremendously, and you inspired a lot of adults to think differently about what children can accomplish when they're given the chance. Good, because Uncle Ben always said that if you have the power to make things better, you have the responsibility to try. Mr. Thorne smiled, recognizing Uncle Ben's wisdom in Alex's words. As they pulled into their building's garage, he marveled at how this small boy had not only transformed his understanding of family and purpose, but was now influencing an entire community to reconsider their responsibilities to society's most vulnerable children. The foundation's phones rang constantly over the following weeks with offers of support, partnership requests, and most touchingly, calls from children who wanted to start their own helping projects. Alex insisted on personally responding to as many as possible, dictating letters that Ms. Davenport would type and helping to coordinate electronics collection drives across the country. Are you happy with how everything turned out? Mr. Thorne asked him one evening as they framed the official adoption certificate alongside one of his early drawings of their first meeting. Alex studied both images thoughtfully. I'm sad that Uncle Ben isn't here to see it, but I think he would be proud. We're taking care of each other, and we're helping other kids feel less alone. That's what he would want. As they hung the frames side by side in their living room, Mr. Thorne realized that Alex had given him something more valuable than he'd ever imagined possible. Not just a son, but a purpose that extended far, beyond personal success to encompass genuine service to others. 1 year to the day after the accident that changed everything, Alex stood before his bedroom mirror, preparing for his first day at Thorne Academy, one of Chicago's most prestigious private schools. The 8-year-old boy adjusting his new uniform bore little resemblance to the 7-year-old who had knelt beside a roadside auto stand. Yet, his essential spirit remained unchanged. Nervous? Mr. Thorne asked, appearing in his doorway, with 2 cups of hot chocolate, a tradition they'd established for important mornings. A little, Alex admitted, accepting the warm mug gratefully. What if the kids think I'm weird because of all the newspaper stories? Then they don't deserve to be your friends. Mr. Thorne sat on his bed, watching as Alex made final adjustments to his appearance. But I have a feeling you'll find your people. You always do. Alex moved to his dresser, where his remaining car part collection was arranged in a new pattern, a perfect engine block shape with Uncle Ben's photograph placed carefully in the center. The design had taken him weeks to perfect, each part positioned with the same meticulous care he'd shown as a 7-year-old. But now, with the added wisdom of everything he'd experienced, I used to think the car parts were magic, he said, touching one gently. But I figured out that the magic was never in the parts themselves. Where was it then? In believing that something good was coming, even when everything seemed broken. Alex picked up his backpack, heavy with new school supplies, and carefully organized according to his color-coded system. Uncle Ben taught me that hope is the most important thing you can carry with you. They rode to school in comfortable silence, both lost in reflection about the journey that had brought them to this moment. The accident that could have been a tragedy had instead become the first chapter of a love story. Not just between a father and son, but between their small family and the hundreds of children whose lives they'd touched through the foundation. Thorne Academy's imposing brick facade might have intimidated another child, but Alex surveyed it with the same practical assessment he brought to everything else. Students in identical uniforms clustered in small groups, their conversations creating a buzz of nervous energy that marked the beginning of any school year. "Remember," Mr. Thorne said as they approached the entrance, "you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just be yourself." "I know." Alex paused at the school's threshold, his hand unconsciously reaching for the red die-cast Mustang that never left his side. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. Will you be here when school ends? I know it's silly, but..." The question revealed the one vulnerability Alex rarely showed, the deep-seated fear that the people he loved might disappear without warning, as Uncle Ben had. Mr. Thorne knelt to his level, taking his son's small hands in his larger ones. "Alex Miller Thorne, I will be here every day when school ends, for as long as you need me to be. I promise you that on everything that matters, to me, on Uncle Ben's memory, on our foundation, on the love that brought us together, even when you're grown up. Especially when you're grown up, that's what daddies do. We stay." Alex's smile transformed his face, banishing the last traces of uncertainty. "Okay, then I'm ready." As he walked through the school's entrance, his confident stride drawing curious glances from other students, Mr. Thorne reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them here. 12 months ago, he'd been a successful but emotionally isolated businessman whose life revolved around profit, margins, and quarterly reports. Today, he was a father whose greatest achievement wasn't measured in dollars, but in the courage of the little boy disappearing into his new school. His phone buzzed with a text from Ms. Davenport. "Foundation board meeting moved to 2 p.m. 3 new shelter applications need review." Mr. Thorne smiled, typing back, "Perfect. Alex will want to evaluate the innovation program proposals when he gets home." The Miller Thorne Foundation had evolved far beyond their original vision. With Alex's input, they had expanded to support robotics programs in 23 states, trained over 200 volunteers in Alex's invention kit technique, and helped establish creative spaces and facilities serving more than 5,000 children. But the numbers, impressive as they were, didn't capture the real impact. The shy children who'd found their voices through building, the teenagers who'd discovered hope through creativity, the families reunified through programs that addressed emotional healing alongside basic needs. Alex had become something unprecedented in the philanthropic world, a child advocate whose ideas were taken seriously by adults, whose vision shaped policy decisions, and whose personal story inspired systemic change. University researchers studied his programs, child welfare experts sought his input, and most remarkably, children across the country had begun organizing their own helping initiatives inspired by his example. That evening, Alex burst through their apartment door with the enthusiastic energy of someone who'd conquered new territory. "Tell me everything," Mr. Thorne demanded, sweeping him into a hug that lifted his feet off the ground. "Mrs. Patterson, she's my teacher," Alex said, his words tumbling out in an excited rush as he kicked off his school shoes and began his afternoon routine of checking on his remaining car part collection. "She asked if I was the Alex from the newspapers, and I said yes, but that I hoped we could talk about normal 8-year-old things too. And then Tommy Chen said his mom read the article about our foundation and asked if I could teach him to make robot kits for his little sister who's scared of starting kindergarten. And Sarah Williams, she sits next to me in math, said her grandmother collects old clocks too, but she just keeps them in a jar. I told her about new inventions and she wants to learn. Oh, and the librarian, Mr. Rodriguez, asked if I'd like to start an engineering club where kids can work on projects to donate to shelters." Mr. Thorne listened with the contentment of someone whose world had found its proper order. Alex's, ability to find connection and purpose wherever he went no longer surprised him, but it continued to fill him with wonder. As they worked together on foundation applications that evening, Alex carefully reviewing requests from children's programs, while Mr. Thorne handled the financial details, he marveled at how completely their lives had intertwined. They functioned as true partners now, each bringing unique strengths to their shared mission of helping children find creativity and hope in difficult circumstances. "This one's from a school in Denver," Alex announced, holding up an application, decorated with children's drawings of rockets. "They want to start an invention program for kids whose parents are deployed overseas. Military families move a lot, so the kids could take their inventions with them to remember that they belong somewhere. What do you think? Alex studied the application with the same serious consideration he'd once reserved for arranging his collection by type. I think kids who have to say goodbye to their parents for long times need extra magic to carry with them. We should definitely help them. As bedtime approached, Alex completed his nightly ritual of arranging his car, parts in their engine block pattern, around Uncle Ben's photograph. The routine had evolved over the months, becoming less about seeking comfort and more about honoring memory while embracing the future. Uncle Ben would be amazed by everything we've accomplished, he said softly, touching the frame that held his uncle's smiling image. He'd be proud but not amazed, Mr. Thorne corrected gently. He always knew you were capable of changing the world. He just prepared you for it. Alex nodded, then surprised him by producing a small wrapped package from his school bag. I made this for you in art class today. It's for our anniversary. Inside was a small painting, showing two figures standing beside a burning car. But instead of depicting the accident's trauma, Alex had transformed it into something beautiful. Golden light surrounded the figures, and the flames had become shooting stars carrying them toward a bright future filled with other small figures, the children they'd helped together. It's the moment everything began, he explained, his voice full of an old wisdom. When we saved each other. Mr. Thorne's eyes filled with tears as he studied the painting, understanding that Alex had captured something profound about their relationship. They hadn't just found each other. They'd rescued each other from lives that, while comfortable, had been incomplete. Thank you, he whispered, knowing the painting would join their growing collection of artwork that chronicled their journey together. As Alex settled into bed, clutching the lucky toy Mustang that had brought them together, Mr. Thorne sat in his familiar spot outside his door. Not because Alex needed comfort anymore, but because these quiet moments of watching over him had become precious to Mr. Thorne. Through his partially open door, he could see Alex arranging tomorrow's school clothes with the same methodical care he brought to everything else. At 8 years old, he possessed a remarkable combination of childlike wonder and mature wisdom, able to find joy in simple pleasures while carrying the weight of helping other children find their own paths to happiness. The future stretched ahead of them, filled with school programs to attend, foundation work to expand, and the ordinary, extraordinary moments of a father and son building a life together. Alex would grow up, pursue his own dreams, and eventually create a family of his own. But the bond forged in those crucial months after the accident would remain unbreakable. As Mr. Thorne finally headed to his own room, he paused at the living room wall where their framed adoption certificate hung beside Alex's first drawing of their meeting. The legal document and the childish artwork represented the same truth, that families aren't always born. Sometimes they're chosen, rescued, and built one day at a time through love, patience, and the courage to believe that even the most unexpected beginnings can lead to beautiful endings. The brave little boy who'd saved a stranger's life had indeed led them both to something magical, just as his toy Mustang had always promised. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe for more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from?